They mocked her for dreaming too high. They burned her uniform, spat on her name, and said she'd never belong among the warriors. But when she returned, boots heavy with purpose, scars glowing like medals, and the seal trident shining on her chest, every man who doubted her stood frozen, because she wasn't the same girl they tried to break. She was the storm they created. Rain beat hard against the tin roof of the Navy training camp as recruits gathered near the fire pit, laughter cutting through the night like knives. Emily Carter stood silent among them, her jaw clenched, her hands trembling slightly behind her back. She'd been the first woman in her unit to volunteer for SEAL pre-training, and the only one still standing after the first 2 months. But instead of respect, she'd earned mockery. "A SEAL, you," sneered Corporal Jensen, tossing his beer can into the fire. "You'll last about as long as that can, empty and crushed." The others laughed, their faces glowing orange from the flames. Emily didn't flinch. She stared at the flickering fire as if it were a mirror of her soul, burning, but alive. "Say what you want," she said quietly. "One day, you'll salute me." That only made them laugh harder. Then someone, she didn't see who, grabbed her service uniform from the hook near her bunk and tossed it into the fire. The blue fabric curled and blackened instantly, smoke spiraling up into the cold night air. For a moment, everything inside her went silent. That uniform wasn't just cloth. It was every hour she'd fought against doubt, every drop of sweat she'd shed to prove she belonged. Watching it burn was like watching her identity disintegrate. But she didn't cry, she didn't shout, she just stared into the flames until they turned her reflection into smoke. When the fire finally died down, she walked away, not back to her bunk, but straight to the commanding officer's tent. "Sir," she said, saluting sharply, "I request to continue SEAL Bud's training." He looked at her like she was out of her mind. "You know what you're asking for, Carter. Most men don't make it. Then I'll be the woman who does." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. "You start at dawn." And just like that, the fire that was meant to destroy her became the spark that ignited everything. The next morning, Emily faced the Pacific Ocean, the rising sun painting gold over the waves. The cold surf bit into her skin as she plunged in with the rest of the candidates, carrying a rubber raft above her head. The instructors shouted, waves crashed, muscles screamed, and Emily pushed harder. "You'll quit," one man yelled over the roar. "Women always do." She didn't answer. The ocean swallowed her voice but not her will. Every time she fell, she got back up. Every insult, every glare, every aching breath, she turned it into fuel. But by week 4, the exhaustion was beyond human. She hadn't slept in 36 hours. Her hands bled from carrying the boat, her lips cracked from salt and wind. During Hell Week, she collapsed face first into the sand, her mind a blur of voices telling her to quit. Then she heard it, the faint crackle of fire in her memory, the smell of burning fabric. That night by the fire came flooding back. She could still see their faces, laughing. Her blood surged. She stood up, every muscle screaming in rebellion, and whispered, "Not again." When dawn came, she was still standing, one of only 7 left in the class. But the road ahead was long. SEAL training wasn't just about strength, it was about breaking the human spirit, reshaping it into something unbreakable. Emily learned to drown-proof herself, to fight underwater until her lungs begged for mercy. She ran miles through mud, crawled under barbed wire, and faced mock interrogations that left her shaking. And yet, every night before she closed her eyes, she whispered to herself, "They burned my uniform. I'll make them remember my name." One night, after another brutal training drill, she sat alone by the docks. The moon shimmered on the water. Chief Instructor Donovan, a weathered man with ice-blue eyes, approached her. "Carter," he said, his tone unreadable. "You know how many women tried this before you?" She shook her head. 6. None made it past week 2. "You think you're different." She looked up, eyes steady. "I don't think. I know." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Then stop surviving this course like it's a punishment. Start owning it like a mission." Those words became her mantra. From that day on, she wasn't the woman trying to prove something. She was the warrior preparing for war. By the time Phase 2 began, Emily had already earned a quiet respect among some instructors, not because they liked her, but because she refused to break. But her presence still stirred resentment. During a dive mission, a fellow trainee, Reynolds, intentionally loosened her oxygen line underwater. She almost blacked out before realizing what had happened. When they surfaced, she confronted him. "You could have killed me," He smirked. Better the ocean takes you than you drag us down later. She almost punched him right there, but Donovan's voice echoed in her head, own it like a mission. So she didn't fight him, she outperformed him. The next day, during a full combat simulation, Reynolds panicked under fire and froze. Emily dragged him, in their 80-pound gear, through mud and smoke to safety. When the drill ended, she dropped him on the ground and said, I don't drag anyone down. I carry them. Word spread. Slowly, the laughter stopped. The same men who mocked her began following her lead during drills. They still didn't say it, but she had earned it, respect forged in pain. Then came the breaking point. A real-world mission simulation went wrong. A rogue wave capsized their training boat. One candidate went missing. Despite orders to stay put, Emily dove in. The current was merciless, tearing her through the darkness. She found the missing man clinging to debris, unconscious. She wrapped her arm around him and fought the waves until they both washed up on shore, gasping. Her body was bruised, lungs searing, but she refused medical evacuation. When Donovan approached her that night, he said quietly, Carter, that was insane. She looked up, her voice raw. That's what SEALs do. The next morning, the commander announced it. Candidate Carter, you've officially completed Phase 2. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just saluted. For the first time, the men saluted back. But the hardest test was yet to come. Phase 3, Advanced Combat and Survival. Jungle warfare. Cold, hunger, fear, it was designed to strip you to the core. Emily found herself in Panama, deep in the rainforest, leading a small team. The air was thick, every sound a threat. At night, when everyone slept, she stayed awake, knife in hand, thinking about that fire again. They burned my uniform, she whispered into the darkness. Now I wear armor they can never destroy. 2 years later, the war drums beat louder. Emily Carter, now Lieutenant Carter, had earned her SEAL trident. She stood in full combat gear, her uniform crisp, her name stitched proudly across the chest. She'd become the first female Navy SEAL in her division, a legend born from ashes. But her return to base was something no one saw coming. When she walked into her old camp, the same one where her uniform had been burned, silence fell. The same men who had laughed at her stood at attention. Reynolds, now humbled and reformed, stepped forward. Lieutenant Carter, he said quietly, we're honored to have you back. She looked at him, then at the fire pit still standing in the courtyard. The same pit where her dreams were once turned to smoke. She walked over, stood before it, and dropped something into the ashes, her old SEAL qualification patch, burned edges and all. I don't need to remember what they took, she said softly. I remember what I built. But peace never lasted. 2 days later, her team was deployed on a classified rescue mission, an American scientist kidnapped by extremists off the coast of Somalia. The mission was chaos from the start, gunfire, darkness, and betrayal. Half her team went down in the first 10 minutes. Carter moved like a ghost through the shadows, her rifle steady, her mind razor sharp. When she finally reached the hostage, she realized the kidnappers had set a trap. Explosives lined the building. She had minutes. Calling for backup was useless. She carried the scientist on her shoulders, sprinting through fire and gunshots, every explosion lighting up the night like the one from years ago. She dove into the surf just as the building went up behind her, fire lighting the waves. When the rescue helicopter arrived, the pilot shouted, Lieutenant, we thought you were dead. She smiled faintly, soaked in salt and blood. Not today. Back on American soil, the news exploded. First female Navy SEAL leads successful rescue mission in Somalia. Reporters wanted her story. Magazines wanted her face. But Emily avoided the spotlight. She visited one place instead, the same training camp, now filled with new recruits. As she walked past them, the chatter stopped. Everyone knew who she was. She paused by the fire pit, now extinguished, and turned to face them. I know what you think, she began. That you're not enough. That someone will tell you you can't. They will, and they'll try to burn everything that defines you. But here's the truth, fire doesn't destroy strong steel. It forges it. She paused, her eyes glinting under the sun. They tossed my uniform into the fire. So I became the fire. Her words spread across military circles, social media, and hearts worldwide. Emily Carter became more than a name, she became a symbol. For every girl told she couldn't. For every soldier who almost quit. For every dream burned too soon. Months later, As she stood at a memorial for fallen soldiers, Chief Donovan appeared beside her. "You did it, Carter," he said quietly. She smiled faintly. "We did it." The wind picked up, carrying the scent of smoke, not destruction, but remembrance. And when she walked away, her boots leaving prints in the dust, every step whispered the same truth: they tried to burn her down. Instead, they taught her how to rise. When the world laughs at your dreams, remember, even ashes can rise if they burn with purpose. Share Emily's story to remind someone today: you can be broken, burned, and still come back stronger than fire itself.